They tore up my driveway before I ever said yes. So I locked them out and started charging them $200 every time they wanted back in. And the crazy part is, they actually paid it. Not at first, though. At first they thought I was just some guy they could push around. And honestly, for a minute there, I almost let them. I live at the very end of a road most people don't even know exists. It's called Red Hollow Ridge, out past the edge of a small town in northern Georgia, the kind of place where GPS cuts out and folks wave even if they don't know you. I bought my land back in 2017, about 11 acres tucked into the trees, nothing fancy, just quiet. Built my house the next year with my own hands and a couple buddies. Weekends, beer, bad measurements we fixed twice. You know how it goes. And the one thing I was proud of, maybe more than anything, was that long gravel driveway stretching from the county road all the way up to my place, about a quarter mile. Not perfect, but it was mine. Every rock, every curve, every hour I spent leveling it. Out in the summer heat. Behind my property, there used to be this big stretch of land, around 60 acres, just sitting there. Old farmland. Hadn't been touched in years, weeds and scrub trees taking over. Sometimes I'd walk back there with my dog, just to get away from everything. And I always knew someday somebody with more money than sense would come along and try to turn it into something. Subdivisions, probably. Rows of identical houses where there used to be open sky. But for a while, it stayed quiet, and I got used to that quiet. Then early 2023 rolled around, and sure enough, the for sale sign disappeared, replaced a few weeks later by trucks I didn't recognize parked along the main road, men in polos, clipboards, the whole thing. And not long after that, I got a knock on my door. Guy introduces himself as Daniel Mercer. Clean cut, mid-40s, that polished kind of friendly that feels practiced, like he smiled the same exact smile 1,000 times before. He says he represents a company called Mercer Development Group. No relation, he joked. I didn't laugh. He starts talking about plans for the land behind me. Residential project, maybe 30 homes, something tasteful. That was the word he used, and I'm standing there thinking, yeah, tasteful until the noise starts at 6 in the morning. Then he gets to the point, says they've run into a bit of an access issue. Turns out building a road directly from the highway would be expensive, terrain, permits, environmental stuff, a whole list of reasons that sounded like not my problem. And then he gestures past me, down the hill, toward my driveway, and that's when I knew where this was going. We were hoping, he says, still smiling, to use your driveway temporarily during construction, just for equipment, deliveries, crew vehicles, nothing too disruptive. Nothing too disruptive. I actually remember that phrase sticking in my head. So I ask him, straight up, what are you offering? And for the first time, his smile kind of flickers, just a little, like I said something unexpected. Well, he goes, we'd handle all maintenance on the driveway while we're using it. Keep it in great condition, probably better than it is now. I just stared at him for a second, not even mad yet, just surprised. That's not payment, I said. That's fixing whatever damage you cause. He chuckles, like I'm being difficult on purpose. Most folks out here are pretty open to helping out neighbors. And I remember leaning against my doorframe, crossing my arms, just looking at him. You're not my neighbor, I told him. You're a developer trying to use my property for free. That was the moment everything shifted. I could see it in his face. The friendliness didn't disappear, but it got thinner, like it was just something he put back on out of habit. Well, he said, we'll have to explore our options. I nodded. You should. He left not long after that, polite as ever. But I had this feeling sitting in my chest that the conversation wasn't over. Not even close. About 2 weeks later, I woke up to the sound of engines, deep, heavy diesel engines, not the kind you ignore, and I already knew before I even looked out the window what I was going to see. Dump trucks, 2 of them, crawling up my driveway like they belonged there, followed by an excavator on a trailer, tearing into the gravel, leaving ruts deep enough to twist an ankle in, and for a second, I just stood there in my kitchen, coffee in hand, watching it happen, trying to decide if this was really happening or if I was still half asleep. Then it hit me. They didn't take no for an answer. They just decided my answer didn't matter. I walked outside, flagged one of the drivers down, asked him who told him he could use this road. Guy just shrugged, said he was told this was the access route, didn't even know my name. To him, this was just another job. I called Daniel right there, put him on speaker. Hey, He answers, like we're old friends. You've got trucks on my driveway, I said. Pause just a beat too long. Yeah, he goes. We moved forward with access this morning. Without permission? Another pause. Then he sighs, like I'm the one making this complicated. Our legal team advised that since your driveway connects to a public road, it can be considered accessible for necessary development purposes. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so completely wrong it almost sounded like a joke. You might want to get a better lawyer, I told him, because that's not how private property works. Well, he says, voice tightening just a little. If you have concerns, you can reach out to our attorney. And that was it. That was the moment I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a decision. They'd already decided they were going to use my land and figured I'd either roll over or get tired of fighting. I hung up, stood there for a while, listening to those trucks grind their way up my driveway, each pass chewing it up a little more, and I could feel something shifting in me. Not anger, not yet, something colder, more deliberate. Because if they wanted to turn this into a fight, I wasn't going to lose it on their terms. I called my lawyer that afternoon, an old friend named Carl who doesn't scare easy and definitely doesn't like people who think they can bend the rules just because they've got money. I explained the situation, and before I even finished, he was already laughing. Not amused, more like, "You've got to be kidding me" kind of laugh. "They're trespassing," he said, plain and simple, "and using your property for commercial gain without permission? That's even worse." "So what do we do?" I asked. He didn't hesitate. "We make them stop." And right there, that was the start of it. Carl didn't waste time. That same afternoon, he drafted a formal notice, clean, direct, no fluff. Basically said stop using the driveway immediately, or we move forward with legal action. Trespassing, property damage, unauthorized commercial use, the whole list. He sent it over to their office and CC'd their attorney, made sure there was no way they could claim they didn't see it, and for a brief moment, I actually thought that might be enough. It wasn't. Next morning, 6:02 a.m. I remember the time because I checked my phone the second the noise hit. Same engines, same grinding sound of tires digging into gravel. I walked outside in a hoodie, coffee still in my hand, and there they were again, like nothing had happened, like my land was just another line item on their schedule. That's when it stopped being a misunderstanding and turned into something personal. I called Carl again. Didn't even bother hiding the frustration this time. They're still using it. He goes quiet for a second, then I hear him exhale slow. "All right," he says, "then we escalate." Meaning we stop asking. Now, I'm not the kind of guy who jumps straight to confrontation. I've always believed most things can be worked out if people just act like decent human beings. But standing there, watching another truck bounce its way up my driveway like I didn't exist, something in me just snapped into place. Not loud, not explosive, just decided. That afternoon, I drove into town and ordered a gate. Not one of those flimsy farm gates you can lift off the hinges. I'm talking a solid steel swing gate, 12 feet across, powder-coated black, heavy enough you feel it when it moves, had the posts set deep in concrete right at the entrance where my driveway meets the county road, took a couple days to install, and the whole time I could feel this weird calm settling in, like I'd finally stopped reacting and started acting. Carl came by while we were finishing it up, leaned against his truck, arms crossed, watching the crew set the hinges. "You sure about this?" he asked. I nodded. "It's my property." He gave a small grin. "That's exactly what I wanted to hear." We put a lock on it. Nothing fancy, just solid, the kind that makes a clear point. And that night, for the first time in weeks, everything was quiet again. Didn't last long. Next morning, same time, same engines, except this time they didn't get far. I was already up, standing by the window when the first truck rolled up and stopped, then another, then a third, drivers getting out, looking at the gate, talking, making calls. Within 15 minutes there were about a dozen workers gathered there, all of them stuck on the wrong side of a decision that wasn't theirs. My phone rang. "Daniel." I let it ring twice before answering. "What the hell is this?" he snapped, no smile in his voice anymore. "That's a gate," I said, calm as anything, "on my driveway. You're blocking access to an active construction site," he shot back, like that was supposed to mean something to me. "No," I said, "I'm controlling access to my property." I could hear noise behind him. People talking, engines idling, somebody swearing under their breath. "We've got crews on the clock," he said, Materials being delivered, schedules. Sounds expensive. I cut in. Silence, just for a second, but it was enough. What do you want? He asked finally, and there it was, the shift. The moment he stopped talking at me and started talking to me. An easement agreement, I said. In writing, with proper compensation. He let out a short laugh. Not amused, more like disbelief. That's ridiculous. Then build your own road. We sat in that silence for a few seconds, neither of us speaking, just letting it hang there. This isn't how this works, he said eventually. I looked out at the line of trucks sitting behind that gate, sunlight just starting to hit the tops of the trees, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I felt like I had control again. It is now. He hung up. About an hour later, Carl called me, said their attorney had reached out, throwing around words like injunction, obstruction, damages, the usual playbook when someone's used to getting their way. What do you think? I asked him. He chuckled, same way he had the first day. I think they're bluffing, he said. And I think they don't want this anywhere near a courtroom. Why not? Because right now, he said, they're the ones trespassing, they're the ones using your land without permission, and if a judge looks at this, it's not going to go the way they think. So we waited. Day 1. Nothing moved. Trucks showed up, saw the gate, left, workers stood around for a while, then packed it in. I watched it all from my porch, not saying a word. Day 2, same thing, but you could feel the tension building, more calls, more pacing, more frustration. Construction sites aren't built to sit still. Every hour costs money, every delay stacks up. By day 3, you could practically smell the pressure, and right around mid-morning, my phone rang again. Daniel. This time, different tone, still tight, but controlled, like he'd had a few conversations he didn't enjoy. Let's talk, he said. I'm listening. He took a breath. We're willing to offer $5,000 for temporary access. I actually smiled, couldn't help it, not because it was funny, but because it told me exactly where they were. No, I said. Pause. No, he repeated. $200 per vehicle, I said. Every time they used the driveway, tracked, documented, paid weekly. There was a long silence on the line, longer than any before, and I could almost picture him, standing there with that same practiced smile, except now it wasn't working anymore. That's insane, he said finally. Is it? I asked, because building your own road is going to cost you a whole lot more. He exhaled sharply. We're not paying that. Then you're not using the driveway. Simple as that. He tried to negotiate, of course he did, came back with $100 per trip, said it was more than fair, said I was taking advantage of the situation, and maybe I was, but I also remembered those trucks rolling in without permission, remembered him telling me my property didn't matter, remembered that first morning standing there feeling like I didn't have a say. 200, I repeated, non-negotiable. You realize this could cost us over $100,000, he said. I leaned back in my chair, looking out over the trees, the same land I'd worked on for years, quiet again now, peaceful. Then maybe, I said, you should have asked the first time. Another silence, heavier this time. Not just frustration, something closer to acceptance. Send the terms, he said. And just like that, everything changed. Carl moved fast once Daniel said yes. Drew up a clean agreement, tight language, no loopholes, the kind of document that doesn't leave room for interpretation. Every vehicle counted, every trip logged, payment due at the end of each week, and the line that mattered most, the one Carl insisted on adding twice just to make it crystal clear, late payment meant the gate stayed closed, no exceptions, no grace period, no, we'll sort it out later. You don't pay, you don't pass, simple as that. Daniel signed it 2 days later. No ceremony, no handshake, just a scanned signature on a PDF and a short email that said, let's proceed. And we did. I installed a vehicle counter at the gate. Nothing fancy, just a pressure sensor hooked to a digital tally. Mounted it where every tire had to roll over it. Every time the gate opened, it ticked up, quiet, steady, honest. I kept a notebook too, old school, wrote down dates, rough times, anything that felt off. Not because I didn't trust the system, but because I didn't trust them. First week, I remember sitting at my kitchen table Sunday night, adding it all up, 63 trips, dump trucks, concrete mixers, pickups full of workers, 63 times that gate opened. I stared at the number for a second, then did the math twice, just to be sure. $12,600. For 1 week. I sent the invoice Monday morning, short, professional, attached the log, and I'll admit, there was a part of me that wondered if this was where it would fall apart. If they'd push back, argue the count, delay the payment, try something. They didn't. Money hit my account Wednesday afternoon, full amount, no comment. And that's when it really sank in. This wasn't a bluff anymore. This was real. Weeks turned into months, and that counter just kept ticking, steady as a heartbeat. Some days it barely moved. Other days it felt like every 10 minutes another truck was rolling through, and every single one of them meant $200. Daniel didn't call much after that. When he did, it was all business, clipped, efficient. No more charm. No more pretending this was anything but what it was, a deal he didn't like, but had to live with. I did notice things, though, little adjustments, trucks coming in fuller, fewer trips, but heavier loads. Workers carpooling instead of driving separately. They were trying to manage the damage, cut down the count wherever they could, and I couldn't blame them. I would have done the same. But it didn't change the math all that much. By the end of the first 6 months, the total was already well past 50 grand. And the crazy part is, life around it stayed normal. I'd wake up, make coffee, hear the gate open, glance at the counter, maybe jot something down, then go about my day, fix things around the house, take the dog out, sit on the porch in the evening, and in the background, this whole operation kept running, like some strange side business I never planned but somehow ended up owning. People in town started hearing about it. Small places, word travels fast. Couple guys at the hardware store asked me if it was true. One of them laughed and said, "Man, you're charging them toll like it's a bridge." I shrugged. They're the ones crossing it. Around month 8, Daniel showed up in person again. First time since all this started. No clipboard this time. No rehearsed smile. Just him, standing at the end of the driveway, looking up toward the house like he was measuring something he couldn't quite see. I walked down to meet him, hands in my pockets, not in a hurry. "We need to talk," he said. I nodded. "We are talking." He glanced back at the road, then at the gate. "This isn't sustainable." "For who?" I asked. "For us," he said, a little sharper now. "This cost, it's getting out of hand." I tilted my head slightly. "You had another option." He let that sit for a second, then sighed. Not angry, just tired. "What if we buy the easement outright?" he said. That caught my attention, not because I hadn't thought about it, but because now he was the one bringing it up. "What are you offering?" I asked. 30,000, he said, quick, like he wanted it out there before I could frame the number myself. I almost smiled, not in a mocking way, just recognizing the move. 50, I said. He shook his head immediately. "That's too high." "So is 100,000 in access fees," I replied. We stood there for a minute, wind moving through the trees, that same quiet that used to define this place before all the trucks and engines and contracts, and for a second, I wondered if this was the part where it finally ended, where one of us pushed too far. 40, he said finally. I looked past him, down the length of the driveway, the same stretch of land I'd built piece by piece, now smoother than it had ever been. Because to their credit, they had maintained it, and then some gravel replaced, edges cleaned up, even some grading work that made the whole thing sit better after rain. I thought about the last year, the noise, the frustration, the early mornings, but also the control, the fact that when it mattered, I didn't back down, didn't let someone else decide what my property was worth. 40, I repeated. He nodded once. "All right," I said, "you've got a deal." We shook hands, firm, brief, not friendly, not hostile, just finished. Paperwork took a couple weeks, standard stuff, surveys, filings, signatures, and when it was done, that gate stayed open. No more counting, no more invoices, just a road again. Final numbers. When I sat down and added everything up, access fees, the easement, $134,000 for $100. For a driveway they thought they could use for free. A few weeks after everything wrapped, they paved it, full asphalt, clean edges, smooth all the way from the county road up to my house. I remember driving up it the first time, no crunch of gravel under the tires, just that quiet hum. And I had to admit, it felt good. Not just the road, the whole thing. But here's the part one still think about sometimes, late at night, sitting on that same porch, when everything's quiet again. Was I right to push it that far, to charge what I did, knowing how much it cost them? Or was I just doing exactly what they tried to do to me? Using leverage when I had it? Because if they'd come to me differently that first day, been straight, made a fair offer, maybe none of this happens. Maybe we shake hands, agree on something reasonable, and move on. Instead, they made a decision for me, and I made one right back. So I'm curious what you think. If you were in my place, would you have done the same thing, held your ground, charged every trip, or would you have taken the easier road and settled early? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read more of them than you'd think. And trust me, on this one, people tend to have strong opinions.